Under the bright lights of Moscow's press hall, cameras click in rhythm as Russian President Vladimir Putin steps up to the podium. The tone in the room is calm, but beneath the surface lies a clear undercurrent of geopolitical tension. Moments earlier, Washington announced that US President Donald Trump would postpone his planned meeting with Putin, originally scheduled to take place in Budapest. The decision came unexpectedly. For weeks, diplomats on both sides had been preparing what many hoped would be a constructive dialogue between two of the world's most powerful leaders. Yet now, the air is thick with uncertainty, and Putin knows the world is watching. He takes a moment before speaking, glancing at the reporters gathered in front of him. Then, in his familiar measured tone, he delivers a message that mixes disappointment with persistence. I notice that this statement sounds familiar. The American President Donald Trump has decided to cancel or postpone this meeting. He's talking about postponing this meeting. What can I say? Dialogue is always preferable to confrontation, arguments, and even more so to war. That's why we have always supported the continuation of dialogue, and we continue to do so today. Vladimir Putin, Russian President. Those words, dialogue is always preferable to confrontation, encapsulate the Kremlin's strategy at this moment. Moscow's message is clear. Even when Washington hesitates, Russia will publicly claim the diplomatic high ground. The optics are deliberate, calm, reasoned, even conciliatory. Yet behind the rhetoric, analysts say the cancellation reflects deepening mistrust between Moscow and Washington. The planned meeting in Budapest was expected to cover a range of sensitive issues: arms control, sanctions relief, and regional security in Eastern Europe. US officials had hoped to secure concrete steps toward limiting nuclear deployments in the Baltic region. Russian officials, meanwhile, sought acknowledgement of their security concerns in Ukraine and along NATO's eastern flank. With Trump's decision to postpone, those conversations are once again frozen in uncertainty. Across Moscow, political commentators are dissecting the move. Some frame it as a tactical pause, an opportunity for both sides to recalibrate positions ahead of more serious negotiations. Others see it as another example of Washington's inconsistent approach to dealing with the Kremlin. On Russian state television, anchors echo Putin's sentiment that Russia remains open to dialogue but will not beg for it. Internationally, reactions have been mixed. European capitals have expressed cautious relief, wary that a rushed Trump-Putin encounter could have produced unpredictable outcomes. In Brussels, EU diplomats describe the postponement as a pause that may prevent confusion, while in Berlin, officials stress the importance of maintaining coordination within NATO before any future summit with Moscow. Still, Putin's words carry symbolic weight. His insistence that dialogue must continue is not only directed at Trump, but also at his domestic audience, a reminder that Russia will keep asserting itself on the world stage, no matter how Washington behaves. The press hall remains silent for a brief moment after his remarks. Then a flurry of questions begins, most of them centered on whether Russia interprets the delay as an insult or a sign of weakness from the United States. Putin, unshaken, answers indirectly, repeating that Russia is ready to talk whenever the American side is ready. It's a familiar formula, crafted to appear both patient and firm. Outside the Kremlin, ordinary Russians are divided. Some express frustration that yet another high-profile meeting has been postponed. Others shrug, saying that diplomacy with Washington rarely delivers tangible results. Local newspapers note that this is not the first time a US-Russia summit has been delayed, nor will it likely be the last. In Washington, administration officials offer few details. The White House statement cites scheduling constraints and the need for further preparation. Privately, sources describe growing divisions within Trump's foreign policy team about how to approach Moscow at a time of renewed tensions over Ukraine, cyber operations, and energy sanctions. Analysts believe the hesitation reflects a larger calculation. With US elections approaching and foreign policy controversies mounting, Trump's advisors are wary of optics, wary of another handshake that might spark domestic backlash or questions about the president's stance toward Russia. The Budapest venue itself, once touted as neutral ground, now feels symbolic of a diplomacy on hold. Back in Moscow, Putin continues to address questions with his characteristic composure. He avoids inflammatory language, preferring phrases like constructive engagement and strategic patience. His message is designed for the long game. Russia is not isolated, Russia remains open, and any decision to disengage will be Washington's responsibility. Kremlin watchers say this tone fits a broader pattern. When faced with Western hesitation, Putin often positions himself as the pragmatic statesman, willing to talk, but on his own terms. This allows him to maintain domestic support while projecting an image of calm leadership abroad. At the same time, Russia's actions tell a more complex story. Even as Putin speaks of dialogue, military exercises along the western borders continue. The Russian Defense Ministry recently announced new deployments of advanced missile systems in Kaliningrad, moves that NATO describes as destabilizing. Diplomats note the contrast, words of diplomacy paired with displays of strength. The cancellation of the Budapest meeting also ripples across global markets. Energy analysts observe minor fluctuations in oil prices as investors weigh whether renewed political tension could affect future energy cooperation. Russian state media highlight these shifts as evidence of the world's sensitivity to US unpredictability. Inside Russia's foreign ministry, officials emphasize continuity. They say preparations for potential follow-up meetings remain underway and that channels of communication are open. Yet they also underscore that Moscow will not chase Washington for dialogue. It is a careful balancing act, appearing neither desperate nor dismissive. In Washington, meanwhile, debate continues. Critics of Trump's foreign policy argue that postponing high-level talks only deepens mistrust and allows hardliners in both capitals to fill the vacuum. Supporters counter that more preparation is necessary to avoid concessions that could later be criticized at home. For Putin, the optics of calm persistence may serve a strategic purpose. Domestically, they reinforce his image as a leader above political turbulence, patient, steady, and in control. Internationally, they frame Russia as a power willing to engage but ready to act alone if necessary. Political commentators in Moscow recall similar moments in past decades. Summits cancelled, talks delayed, statements of disappointment followed by renewed overtures. The cyclical nature of US-Russia diplomacy, they say, reflects the complex blend of rivalry and necessity that defines the relationship. As the press conference winds down, cameras capture Putin leaving the podium, expression unreadable. Behind him, the Kremlin emblem glimmers under studio lights. The message he leaves behind is subtle but unmistakable. Russia remains open for dialogue, but only on equal footing. Later that evening, Russian television channels replay the footage with analytical segments. Commentators discuss the meaning of his phrase, "Dialogue is always preferable to confrontation." Some interpret it as an invitation, others as a warning. Across social media, users share clips with captions about the calm before the storm. Western diplomats note that even small linguistic choices matter. By framing the meeting's cancellation as a postponement, both leaders leave room for a future encounter. The tone suggests delay, not rejection, a crucial distinction in high-stakes diplomacy. In Budapest, Hungarian officials who had prepared to host the summit expressed quiet disappointment. City authorities had planned security arrangements, hotel blocks, and press logistics. Local media report that the postponement cost organisers several €100,000. Yet, in official statements, they remain diplomatic, saying they look forward to a new date being agreed upon soon. Back in Washington, reporters press for clarification. When asked if a new meeting is planned, a senior official replies simply, "We're exploring options." That ambiguity, part of the language of diplomacy, keeps speculation alive without committing to a timeline. Experts in international relations say both leaders now face a test of credibility. For Putin, maintaining an image of openness despite setbacks reinforces his strategic patience. For Trump, rescheduling without appearing to yield to Moscow is equally important. Each seeks to control the narrative, and that battle of perception may prove as important as any future negotiation itself. By the end of the day, the footage of Putin's remarks circulates across global networks. The image of the Russian president speaking calmly, urging dialogue over confrontation, contrasts with the uncertainty emanating from Washington. To his domestic audience, it is a display of steadiness. To international viewers, it is a reminder that even amid geopolitical rifts, the language of diplomacy endures. As the lights dim in the press hall and aides gather notes, the broader question remains, will dialogue actually resume? Or will it become another diplomatic promise fading into history? For now, only one thing is clear. Both nations remain locked in a cautious dance where every word, every pause and every postponement carries weight far beyond the press conference walls.